As we continue our weekly segment concerning the Steelers Hall of Honor and welcoming in members of the Hall of Honor and, in this case, the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, it's my great and distinct pleasure to welcome former Steelers center Dermontti Dawson. Dermontti, how are you?
Stan, good morning. I am doing well. I'm outside walking the dog right now.
Okay, all right.
Standing on the sidewalk.
All right. Well, as long as you don't put a leash around my neck, that's okay. I think people would be interested to know, what you're doing now. We try to catch up with everybody.
I'm doing a lot of corporate events, and then also I'm on the board of a company called Frame Your Game, and it's up in Santa Ana, California, and they have NFL licensed products, which are like license plate frames and also plates with player likenesses on it as well. So. That's what's been keeping me busy these past few years.
Outstanding. Are you still living in Kentucky?
No, I live in San Diego, California now.
Do you? Wow.
Yes. I've been out here for about 8.5 years now.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
It's a beautiful, beautiful area, and you can't beat the weather, that's for sure.
Oh, I love it.
Dermontti, obviously you're part of the Steeler legacy, a great Steeler legacy in general, of course, but also in particular – one of a long line of players at the center position. We begin with Ray Mansfield and Mike Webster, yourself, now Maurkice Pouncey. Is there any explanation outside that you're all great players why we just have that line? It's almost like there have been about as many centers as there have been coaches in the Steelers over the last 40 years.
I know, it's strange. Well, a lot of people ask me about that. Is there some kind of formula that they use in the scouting department or the Steelers organization? And I really don't know. Maybe it's just it could be just an evaluation of, players. And I think it's just the luck of the draw, to tell you the truth. Because if everybody had that, everybody would be doing it. And there'd be some phenomenal teams. But I don't know. I mean, just the scouting department working with the front office and, picking the right player for the offense. And it's the luck of the draw sometimes.
Is there something to be said for the way that the Steelers in particular, not so much with Webby, but you in particular, and then Pouncey has continued that, what they wanted their centers to do, or perhaps they did what they did because of what you could do, meaning getting out and pulling, which, back in the olden days, if you will, you didn't see that.
No, and when Ray and Mike played, it was a totally different offense and scheme. And when I played and then we exhibited where I could pull from the center position, then that kind of changed the game a little bit, and it allowed offenses a little bit more flexibility, and it made it tough for defenses as well to have an athletic center who can pull and work in space from the center position. And, Maurkice has picked up from where I left off. And it just kind of gives a wrinkle to a defense. They can't stop you or kind of, I guess keep you off the second level and keep, the linemen out there blocking DBs and everything else. And it just gives you so many different options to have an athletic center.
In that regard, do you feel as though you were kind of a pioneer because you were one of the first centers who had the capability of doing that?
Well, I don't know about pioneer, but I mean, I know a lot of young kids when I go speak to kids and mainly football players. They said, our coach in college used to look at you and show us how the center position has changed and who changed it. Because I don't want to say pioneer, but maybe I started the movement a little bit.
Okay.
But more athletic center, and it does give you options offensively. And it makes it tough on defenses when you have an athletic center who can run.
That's a matter of semantics. Pioneer, started a movement, whatever. You were certainly one of the first.
I guess it's one and the same, huh?
I guess so, but you're too humble to call yourself a pioneer. Plus, it makes you feel older, I'm sure. So we won't use the word pioneer. The great Dermontti Dawson is our guest. One other question about your career. You had the distinction, not many have it, of having played for both Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher. Is there any compare and contrasting to be done between the two?
Well, I get asked that question all the time, Stan, and people say, what was the difference between playing for Coach Noll and Bill Cowher? And I told him, I said, when I came in as a rookie in '88, man, I was in awe of Coach Noel and what he has done as a coach. And and Coach Noel was just more laid back. Let the assistant coaches do their thing. But if things weren't going right, then he spoke, and he spoke volumes when he had something to say. And I think, Coach Noel was one of the smartest men I ever knew. He knew something about everything.
Yes, he did.
And then Bill Cowher comes in '92. He's young. And the game had kind of changed. Players' attitudes and mentality had changed a little bit. And I think he was more of a player's coach. And he was right out there with us, running 40s and, conditioning. He's in meetings. He'd come in and sit in individual meetings with the coaches. He just had the pulse of the players. He was a player's coach. He had the captains who we could go back to him and change things if we didn't think the game plan, if we needed some changes in the game plan and we didn't think it was going to be effective. He allowed us to come and talk to him and make changes. And I think that's what made him such a successful coach throughout his tenure.
Well, he wasn't a whole lot older than some of you guys when you stop and think about it. He took over. He was 35, same age as Mike Tomlin was when he came in. Dermontti Dawson is our guest. Dermontti made 7 consecutive Pro Bowls and 6 consecutive first-team All-Pro at the center position. Of course, he's in the Hall of Fame, which means he's automatically in the Hall of Honor. I know, Dermontti, you've come to some of the ceremonies last year, and Alan Faneca and Buddy Dial put in, Art Rooney and Bill Nunn. And I wondered what, first of all, your thoughts were when they decided to establish this Hall of Honor.
I think it's great. I mean, if you think about all the great players who have played in Steeler history, it's great just to recognize those guys. I know a lot of guys are in the Ring of Honor, but for the Hall of Honor, it's great, having the plaques inside the stadium so people, all the fans, when they come to the games, can see all the players that, the great players who played in Steeler history. And, because sometimes, it gets lost because a lot of players aren't really in the public eye or have passed away, and people forget about them. And I think it's a great way of honoring players.
Yeah, I think most of the guys, especially the ones in Canton, realize that they played with so many great players who may not get there or should be there, but we're not. We've already talked to Donnie Schelt. He certainly is one who comes to mind. Last week we talked to Mel Blount, who was talking about Mike Wagner, who was the signal caller back in the secondary on 4 Super Bowl teams, and certainly there are guys that you played with that we've talked about. Is there a player or players that you would heavily back for induction to the Steelers Hall of Honor?
I'm really not for sure. I mean, I know Greg Lloyd as well. Is Greg in the Hall of Honor right now?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Well, Greg deserves it as well. And, Greg was a phenomenal linebacker. LeVon Kirkland, another phenomenal linebacker as well. I'd have to sit and think about it, but those are 2 who come to mind first off the bat. So, those 2 right now.
Dermontti, you had a brilliant career. Perhaps the only thing missing, although you played in one, was winning a Super Bowl. And I wonder if that's something that just you feel like maybe a little bit unfulfilled because you played the one against Dallas in '95, but you didn't win that game. Is that kind of a little bit of a void for you in your career?
I don't have any voids. I have no regrets, Dan, whatsoever. It doesn't determine who I am as a person or player, and the individual accolades and all that stuff are most important. Winning the championship, that's every football player's dream, but they played in one, had that experience, and no, I have no regrets whatsoever.
Well, you were part of some terrific football teams. Certainly in the mid '90s, there's the '89 might have been the most exciting season.
I know.
You had, I remember the last game of the regular season. We were all in Tampa Bay. It snowed the night before. It was freezing cold, and you needed
ice cold.
Yeah, it was ice cold. People there were panicked. They didn't know what to do. It was springtime for Pittsburghers, but you needed all those teams to win and certain teams to lose, and you made the playoffs and pulled off that great upset in Houston.
Yeah, and then had to go to Denver after that.
Should have won that game.
And we should have won that game. I ended up getting hurt with so many minutes left in the I think I got hurt in the first half. or maybe it was his fourth quarter. I can't remember, but I know I had to go out, and I missed the last part of the game in the locker room. Yeah, we should have won that game, Stan. That was a great game, and we had some momentum going.
Oh, no question about that. Certainly coming into that game, nobody picked the Steelers even have a chance, and as we say, probably should have won that game. Dermontti, it was great catching up with you. I really appreciate the time. Enjoy walking your dog the rest of your walk.
I will. Hey, Stan, thank you for having me on the show as well this morning.
Oh, it's very much my pleasure, and it's an honor to have a member of the Steelers Hall of Honor on with me. Dermontti, take care. Best wishes.
Thank you, Stan. Appreciate it.
Okay, that's the great Dermontti Dawson. Hall of Fame. What can you say? Hall of Honor. What can we say? Savran on Sports will continue right here on ESPN Pittsburgh.